Hi guys and welcome back to the Park End Podcast. My name is Cameron. Welcome back to the podcast. It is episode number 7. Haven't done a podcast episode in a while, to be fair. Had a lot going on obviously with the channel and with Everton, and it's just been a bit of a manic last few months. What a guest to be joined by for the return of the podcast, by the way. We are joined by Cornet, really good friend of mine. If you are a fan of the Mighty Blues YouTube channel, you'll know Cornet. You'll have seen him before, you'll have spoken to him before on the channel. Cornet is a Blue all the way from South Africa, which is really interesting. We're going to talk today a little bit about Cornet's story, how he become a Blue over in South Africa, and we're going to talk a little bit about Everton at the moment, because the last time we actually spoke was before Carlo Ancelotti's last Premier League season as Everton manager, so before the 2020-2021 season. So a lot has obviously changed since then. We've signed James Rodriguez. We've gone from, being top of the league in October last year to finishing 10th, to Ancelotti leaving, Rafa Benitez, Damari Gray, all of this stuff. So we're going to try and get as much of it involved in the conversation as we possibly can. But before we get into any of that, mate, how are you? How is things over in South Africa? You've just said then the weather's changed a little bit. Has it back to being its usual warm self?
Yo, what's up, man? It's good to finally speak with you again. Yes, you gave me a warm welcome there, man. Thanks. Yeah, things are going well, man. I can't believe it's been quite a long time since we've spoken. I've been quite busy with work and stuff, but it's nice to be able to sit here with some shorts and not having a jersey on, because it did get quite cold this winter. And finally got my vaccination like a week ago, so I'm also at least free from that. But yeah, we had some issues with my dad's COVID early in the year, which was quite he was really sick. So I'm glad we got out of that one. But yeah, things are going well. Everton is playing as well as they did the first 5 games of last season, so it's a spirit of the Blues is probably coming out next week if we win again, but hopefully it's not a detriment like it was last time when we went on a 5-game unbeaten streak in the league, and then we lost Newcastle, Southampton, and Man United. So I'm hoping things are different.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's going well.
Yeah, obviously, like you said, it's been a difficult, last year or so for everybody in the world. Absolutely made up to hear that your dad's back to health and everything's all good over there. You said about the weather there, it's been quite mad over here as well. One minute it's raining and absolutely freezing, and the next minute it's about 40 degrees, and you've got, you're getting the shorts out and the short sleeve toss. But you're right about Everton as well. Very good start to the season this season. Obviously Damari Gray settling in really well, and Josh Townsend settling in well, and like you said, hopefully we don't jinx it. It was great last season, 7 wins out of 7, 4 out of 4 in the Premier League, top of the league, spirit of the Blues come out, and then it all sort of went downhill from there, didn't it? So hopefully that isn't the case this year. But before we get into this season and how you feel about Carlo Ancelotti leaving and Rafa Benitez coming in, what's your Everton story? I know we've spoken about this before. Obviously, we've done a video on the channel. If you haven't seen that video, please do check it out, because you'll get a bit more of an extended sort of answer to this question. But obviously, being an Evertonian over in South Africa, how does that come about? How does it come about that you one day you sort of think, you know what, I want to follow this football club? And how hard is it to support a club like Everton over in South Africa as well? Because I can't imagine Everton to be very big over there. I can imagine, the football teams that you see often are, your Man United, Real Madrid, Liverpool, all of that sort of stuff. So how did it come about for you?
Like Tony Bellew said, Everton, you don't choose Everton, Everton chooses you.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, it's quite mad because well, like I mentioned to you before, it's football in general. Where I was at school, it wasn't really that. It's big in our country, but it's not really big where we were. But when I mean South African soccer,
Yes.
but so we always we started. I went to Afrikaans primary school, and that's soccer is definitely not one of the things that comes about. So it's more rugby and cricket. And when I went to high school, I went to English high school, and then I just started kind of following it through the grapevine, hearing about Man United and Chelsea and Liverpool, unfortunately. And then I ended up just going on the Man United gravy train up until I actually started watching games, and I think it was 2010, 2011, when Steven Pienaar kind of went from Everton to Tottenham and then came back to Everton.
Yeah.
It was like after the 2010 World Cup. I think he was a Tottenham player by then, but I knew about his Everton past, so I just kind of followed him, and then from there they started following Everton. I just always enjoyed the I don't like to be a follower, so I ended up choosing a team that's punching above their weight, I guess. In Everton, and then just kind of started really rooting for them. And when David Moyes left and Martinez came in, I was quite upset because I thought David Moyes did do a good job with the team, but then it just took on another level from there. That season, we actually had something to smile about, the way we played as well as the results we got. So I think it really took off from Martinez's season, and then getting Lukaku to stay the following season was a big up. But I thought things would go better from there, but it ended up being way worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, it's just like kind of ingrained in me now, and it is what it is. I can't help it, even though I don't know why. I've said it to you on WhatsApp before. I'm like, is it even worth supporting, because they just suck the soul out of you. But I guess it's a love, it's a love that's there, and yeah, I'd still love to visit Goodison Park before we move to Bramley Moor.
Definitely. Well, I think there's only something like 56 Premier League home games left at Goodison before we move. So hopefully, like you said, once everything that's going on in the world at the moment, we move on and things start to get back to some form of normality. That'll hopefully be very soon, and hopefully you'll be able to come over and we'll have a pint and we'll be able to go to the match and experience that match day experience, which, again, like you said, being a Blue so far away and so many miles away from Goodison, if even yourself in South Africa has got that emotional connection where no matter how bad it gets, you're still there, watching the game the next week, you're still there supporting the team. It's amazing to hear. Obviously, Steven Pienaar, massive South African footballer, but also a massive footballer at Everton as well. Brilliant in his first years here. Then obviously moved to Tottenham, which was heartbreaking, and then come back and was great for the time he was back as well. So yeah, really interesting. I think very unique story. Like you said, again, being a football fan growing up, football not really being a massive sport over where you were, or soccer, and then sort of almost just finding Everton. And as you said, you're right, Tony Bell, you said, Everton chooses you don't choose Everton, and it's chosen all of us, and through the good times and through the bad, we'll always be here. So as we said before, last time we spoke, we were heading into Carlo Ancelotti's first season as an Everton manager, first full season as an Everton manager, of course. There was a lot of excitement surrounding that season. We'd signed, James Rodriguez, Abdoulaye Doucouré, Alan, Ben Godfrey, obviously. We just finished 12th, but we were all thinking this is going to be the season where we finish in Europe. Like you mentioned there with the Martinez season, we kept all the Lukaku, and you were sort of thinking, right, this is it, we're gonna go another level here, we'll be in the top 4 every year, and it never really worked. And I suppose it was a similar sort of story with Carlo Ancelotti last season, really, wasn't it? I mean, what did you make of last season as a whole? We spoke about that first sort of 7 games, which was a bit of a whirlwind. We were winning every week, top of the league, Spirit of the Blues was out. We always knew that, and Carlo Ancelotti, to be fair, said himself that wasn't going to continue, that would come to an end and that bubble would burst. But I suppose at the end of the season, finishing 10th and again losing some of the games that we lost, certainly at home, what did you make of the season overall? Were you disappointed, or was it sort of just expected?
So yeah, what I can say is, even though we hated when pundits speak about Everton in such a derogatory way, the way they brush us off, they kind of were right in their assessment of him, in terms of he isn't a fit for us. Like, he is not. So I just, like, they were definitely right in terms of him not being an Everton manager, and we didn't like to accept it. But he's always gone into big clubs, and I don't want to say we're small. I mean, like
Yeah,
winning trophies,
yeah,
type of, and our squad needed to be coached, and I just felt like there were too many places. We had like a bunch of average to good players, but we didn't really have a system or style of play,
yeah,
which which something was never right. I could never put my head or my finger on it, but it was just a case of didn't know how we would like we if you had to explain to someone how does Everton play, like the first 7 games was full on attack. Then from there it was literally playing like Burnley every week,
yeah,
sitting back, and it was actually very very shit to watch every week. To every single game was a stress because it was a 1-0 hoping or 0-0 hoping to score one somewhere. So in terms of Carlo, I think if we had Benitez maybe before Carlo built up and then got Carlo after him, it would have maybe been a better fit in terms of having an established team and then getting him in. But obviously didn't turn out that way. But the way it all sussed out was quite sad to see, because there was a lot of optimism and hype around the season just to fizzle out and come 10th. So it was quite disappointing. And after a while, I literally, uh, I I just can't believe Arsenal and Leeds finished above us after the start of the season.
yeah.
It's actually embarrassing, if I'm honest.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, and like you said there about fits for Everton Football Club. Look, Carlo Ancelotti, and again, we won't rewrite history. Carlo Ancelotti is a world class manager. He's won, 4 out of the 5, top leagues in Europe, as they say. He's won Champions Leagues left, right, and centre. But you're absolutely spot on, and I think you make a really good point there. As Carlo Ancelotti is a fantastic manager at managing fantastic players, managing world class players, the likes of Paolo Maldini, Cristiano Ronaldo, not Paul Pogba,
Kaka,
Didier
Pirlo.
Drogba, sorry, Frank Lampard, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, all of these players, these world class players that Carlo Ancelotti has managed during his career, and managed really successfully to win trophies, leagues, European Cups, etc., etc. He's not I don't want to say he's not a good coach, but he certainly wasn't a coach that was suited to Everton Football Club. We needed somebody like a Rafa Benitez, who we'll go on to talking about in a moment, who is very hands-on on the pitch, guiding players. Not somebody that's going to say, just play, go out there and play, because this Everton team isn't full of world-class talent. This Everton team isn't full of players that you can say, just play, and they'll go and score 4, 5, 6 goals, because that's naturally what they do. This is an Everton team full of good players, but players that need coaching, players that need somebody that's going to be on the training field 24 hours a day, working hard, ultimately working to improve. And I don't think Carlo Ancelotti was that manager. Like I said, if we had 20 world-class players, Carlo Ancelotti would be perfect for Everton, but the reality of the situation is we don't have 20 world-class players. Obviously, he tried to change it slightly by bringing in the likes of James Rodriguez and Alan in the summer of last season. And those two, to an extent, worked. Alan's worked brilliantly, and James, even though there's been a lot of talk about him, when he's played for Everton more often than not, he's played well. But there was such a contrast and difference, wasn't he, mate, between that last summer transfer window and the one just gone, in terms of, like you said, last summer we were, ended the window with James Rodriguez, global superstar, Alan in, Decore in, Carlo Ancelotti. We ended this one with Rafa Benitez, who, again, because of the fact that the transfer window ended a couple of weeks after the season started, there was a little bit more excitement surrounding Rafa Benitez, but certainly there was a lot of, again, let's say, unhappy blues when that was announced. Damari Gray coming in, who we all knew was a good player for the money that we signed him for, but we certainly didn't think it'd have as much of an impact as he's had so far. Andros Townsend, who a lot of blues weren't particularly massively pleased about. Obviously, Asmir Begovic, Solomon Rondon as well. So you just said there, obviously, bitterly disappointed with the end of last season. And I agree, by the way, how Arsenal finished above us is baffling, because they were dreadful last season and still somehow managed to finish above us. We did have, obviously, countless amounts of games at Goodison Park without crowds last season, the likes of Fulham, Sheffield United, Burnley, games that we lost that we should never have been losing. Not Fulham, sorry, Sheffield United, Burnley, Aston Villa, too many games, Newcastle, too many games at Goodison that we lost that you looked at and you thought, how have we lost that game? So Carlo leaves at the end of the season, obviously probably against the wishes of most Evertonians, although it wasn't a great season. I think most Evertonians would have rather him stayed. But he leaves, he joins Real Madrid. What were you sort of thinking at that point when the news broke and when the news was announced that Carlo Ancelotti had left to rejoin Real Madrid? Was it sort of for you, was it just like a, here we go again, who are we going to get in? Or were you sort of, because I know there's a lot of Evertonians that certainly I've spoke to now who sort of have said they weren't really that bothered because they weren't really happy with how we were playing last season. As you said, we were playing very, very poorly for the majority of last season. They didn't really think Ancelotti was too much of a suit, so they weren't really that bothered that he'd left. How were you feeling? Were you disappointed? Were you devastated? Or were you just sort of like, it is what it is, he wasn't brilliant anyway, let's move on and go and bring in somebody else?
I think it's easy to say now, no, like I wasn't bothered or because we started well. But I think at the time he left, yes, we did finish like quite badly. But I think there was still that optimism that he'll probably attract a lot of players in the summer, and then from there at least build something. I know, okay, from 12th the previous season to 10th is not a big push, but it is 49 points to 59 points, which is, I guess, a 10 points improvement. I don't understand why he changed the style of play from the beginning of the season to the middle. It's probably because we lost Seamus Coleman, which and I think Alan. So I think that caused him to probably be more defensive. But we were scoring goals, we were conceding goals. But I I don't know. What do you think if we just kept the style of play from the beginning throughout? Do you think we could have finished with a bigger amount of points than we did?
Um, yeah, I do, but I think, like you said, it's it's easy to say about the style of playing, and I think you're right. I think the injury to Seamus Coleman in November was a massive detriment to Everton, because it wasn't just losing Seamus Coleman, who obviously on his day is a very good footballer and the club captain, but it was losing that balance in the squad. It was losing that balance in the team. All of a sudden, we had to change it around. We had to play players out of position. We had to play a right back that wasn't necessarily an attacking style player. So the whole sort of balance of the team went from, very much steady and going well to lopsided either way, and we struggled with that. We then lost Alan for 2 or 3 months. We lost Luca Dean for 3 months before that, obviously with an injury that he needed out with, and I think we were the only team in the Premier League last season to have had every single first team player injured for a
But
period
meanwhile,
of time.
everyone speaks. Yeah, sorry, man.
No, you're
Everyone
spot on.
speaks. Everyone speaks of Virgil van Dijk. I know it was bad, but I mean, we had as many injuries, just at different points. But because our guys are not world class or considered world class in terms of the media, no one gives a shit.
That's it.
So I guess we did suffer a lot of injuries at crucial times, which derailed a lot of our season. Richarlison, stupid red card that he got, and then 3 games lost because the balance was somehow we couldn't win a game without Richarlison. Obviously, that's changed. But as going back to your other point, I think it was disappointing that he left, but I think it didn't take long for people to realize that he should have probably been sacked if he was any other manager based on where we finished. So I think it was just a case of trying to replace that sort of name with someone with equal gravitas, and we were all unsure as a fan base who we actually wanted after that, because going from him to anyone else in terms of a name is going to be hard, and I think that's why I guess the owner or majority shareholder went for Rafa, because he knows, I guess, what he gets out of him in terms of status as well as achievements. But yeah, we'll talk about that probably in a bit.
Yeah, definitely. Well, like I said, I was going to say, obviously, Carlo left and there was a lot of disappointment, and I remember sitting here and doing a stream and saying, what next, where do we go from here? Because I remember being very confident when Carlo Ancelotti joined Everton that he would be the manager to win us a trophy, he would be the manager to take us forward. As you said, there was a lot of Evertonians at the end of the season that weren't happy with Carlo Ancelotti, and there was a lot of, like you've just mentioned, people saying, hang on, if this was Marco Silva or Roberto Martinez or Ronald Koeman, there'd be a lot more, you know, shouts for him to leave the football club and to be sacked because of the way in which we've played and some of the results that clearly weren't good enough. But Carlo left, and then we went through this period of what felt like about 4 years, but was actually about 5-6 weeks of just constant names. Went from Nuno Espirito Santo, Rafa Benitez, who obviously is the Everton manager. David Moyes was in there. We had Christophe Galtier in there. Mark Hughes was thrown about. We had Graham Potter. We had various different names.
I think Mark Hughes is always just thrown about by Richard Keys.
Yeah.
I think he has an obsession with. I don't know why he would even. That's just a joke. I wouldn't take it seriously.
But it's mad. But there was a lot of names thrown in the hat. It almost felt like the bookies' favourite changed day by day. And I remember sitting doing streams daily talking about the managerial situation, and it almost felt like it was a long, drawn out process that ultimately I've got no big issue with, because that means that Everton have spent their time and actually, you know, nailed down who they believe is the best man for the job, interviewed, you know, a number of candidates, and at the end of those interviews it turned out that Rafa Benitez was the best interviewer and presented the best case to become the new Everton manager. Now obviously, you know, we'd had, like I said, we'd had various names before Rafa Benitez, the likes of Christophe Galtier, Graham Potter, etc. Who was there one name that you really wanted Everton to go for? Was there one manager that you thought, yeah, I want him, I want us to go for him? Whether was it Galtier, was it Potter, was it maybe Rafa, or were you just, because I know for me, I didn't really know who I wanted. I was just sort of sitting there thinking, I don't know who's the best person for the job here. I'm confused. Or was there one name for you that really stuck out? Duncan Ferguson, of course, was in that argument as well.
To be honest, I was just following who they put out, but there wasn't really a standout candidate.
Yeah.
I literally couldn't tell you that this person or this person. So I think we were all kind of just leaving it up to Marcel Brands and Farad. So I can't tell you that if there was anyone, I'd probably but I think that's just climbing on the big name. Antonio Conte was probably someone I would have wanted, but then again, we didn't have the money to spend. So I don't know. I guess he is a very good coach, because he took Victor Moses and Ashley Young to Inter Milan and won the league. So I guess he could have done it with our squad, plucking a few holes. But other than that, I don't think there was anyone specific that I was, to be honest, not against Rafa being linked or joined, because I didn't actually watch football while he was the manager of Liverpool, so it doesn't really affect me that much. And so I was happy with him coming in.
Yeah. So obviously, as you said, there was a long, thought out, drawn process. I think you're spot on. I think there was most Evertonians were like me and like you, just sort of thought, well, yeah, Conte'd be the perfect, but also Antonio Conte comes in with demands and wants to be managing a team that are challenging for league titles, not a team like Everton who are challenging in mid-table. And then all of the rest of the names had their positives and negatives, really. Graham Potter's positives was he plays lovely football. His negatives was that he openly come out and said that he doesn't really like the pressure from Brighton fans, which would mean he wouldn't last 10 minutes at Goodison. Galtier had won the league at Lille, but had never managed in England. You had, obviously, as we said, Rafa, who was a great manager and probably the closest to Carlo Ancelotti in regards to stature, but obviously had managed Liverpool and said some things in the past. So we went through this entire drawn-out process. It became evident in the last couple of weeks David Moyes was signing a new contract for West Ham. A lot of Blues wanted David Moyes, a lot of Blues didn't want David Moyes. And then Rafa Benitez is announced as Everton manager. What were you you just said yourself then, I think it's a really, really interesting take that you said obviously it didn't massively affect you because you weren't that into football when he was the manager of Liverpool and when he maybe said what he said. Did you understand the feeling of a lot of Evertonians towards Rafa Benitez and towards the club for making this appointment, or because you didn't really have that personal, not issue, but personal history with Rafa Benitez, were you very much like, just give him a chance and get on with it, or did you understand that this was maybe a bit of a bitter pill to swallow for a lot of Blues?
I think definitely I don't live in the city, so obviously I know it's football mad, and like the supporters give their everything to Everton, and there's a massive rivalry. I don't know how much of a hatred Everton fans have towards Liverpool. If it's more a mutual respect, I haven't been there, so I don't know if it's just a media hype. You can probably inform me more if it's Celtic versus Rangers, if it's if it, if it's what's the one in Europe? Is it who was that other person that played centre back for us that Martinez bought?
Oh,
The
Ramiro
left.
Funes Mori.
Yeah. Where did he come from?
Oh, Argentina. It was
Yeah,
River
but
Plate
I think
versus Boca
yeah, they
Juniors.
apparently those that rivalry is apparently also huge. So you can inform me more about the actual stance of Everton and Liverpool fans. But I obviously understood that he made some comments about Everton. But to be honest, if he's the manager of the one team, he's gonna say that in order to win the fans of the other. So I don't think you can take much from what he said back then. But obviously, I can't tell you that they Everton fans can't feel the way they do, because everyone's entitled to their opinion. But for me, it if he's the right fit, if he's the chosen one, and he's because I know he lives in the city and he loves football and he's football mad. So I think if he goes into a club, he wants them to do well, and he really does his best to improve players. I mean, Liverpool had Sami Apia winning the Champions League. They had some very average players, and he, I guess, made them better. Valencia won the league twice under
Yeah.
his when Real Madrid and Barcelona was there. So I guess he is more of an Everton manager than Carlo Ancelotti.
Yeah, I agree absolutely, and you're spot on, and it leads lovely into the next point there. You said he's more suited to Everton. I think a lot of Evertonians have realised this now, and even the Evertonians that don't particularly like Rafa Benitez or still aren't particularly made up that he's here can respect and understand that he is getting more out of this squad than what Carlo Ancelotti was. And again, we won't rewrite history, and I'm not going to sit here and say Carlo was awful, this, that, and the other. We won at Anfield, we got some amazing wins, and we had some amazing performances under Carlo Ancelotti. But in terms of his managerial style, Rafa Benitez just seems to suit Everton. I've done a stream yesterday. This won't be out for a few days, but I've done a stream the other day talking about Rafa Benitez and his never satisfied mentality. Anzos Townsend done an interview after the Burnley game, and he was asked by I think it was Gary Neville or Jamie Carragher on Monday Night Football, about the manager and the manager's impact, and he said, well, just to give you an idea, I've just spoken to Rafa Benitez for 10-15 minutes and he never congratulated me once on my goal. He was telling me about what I should have been doing, where I should have been moving, where I should have been playing. There's a video of Seamus Coleman after the final whistle, and Rafa Benitez is on the pitch telling Seamus Coleman, giving him instructions. And I don't know whether you agree, mate, but I said the other day that that's the type of manager that Everton need. Everton don't particularly need a manager who's going to... And look, I praised Carlo Ancelotti at times last season for putting his arm around Dominic Calvert-Lewin and telling him that he's one of the best strikers he's ever worked with, because it helped Dominic Calvert-Lewin massively. Dominic Calvert-Lewin has progressed massively since Carlo Ancelotti had come in, probably because of that confidence he was given. It helped some players, but I also think that as Everton Football Club, as Everton as an entity, as a football club, we're more suited to the mentality of always wanting more, never being satisfied, than the mentality of putting an arm around the player, even if they've had an awful game but they've scored in the last second, and saying, you're absolutely amazing, you're the best thing ever. No, that the instruction to that player has got to be, well, yeah, you scored, well done, but what's gone on for the rest of the game? Why weren't you in this position? Why weren't you doing this? Why weren't you doing that? And that's certainly what Rafa Benitez is. And we know from his history that he's notoriously been known to sleep at training grounds before at previous clubs. First person in the training ground, last person out. He's a workaholic. He loves football. He lives football. You mentioned then he lives in the city, so he's comfortable in the city. And ultimately, mate, he's doing well and he's saying all the right things, isn't he, at the moment?
Yeah, I think he probably got a PR exercise a week before he joined, just to okay, you can't say this, and this. No, I'm joking, but I think that's I don't think he's I think it's more of a joke that he doesn't how do I say, praise players. I honestly do think he does. I'm sure he loved Andrew Townsend's goal,
definitely.
but it's like a bit of a joke that he hasn't praised them. But the people, I think certain players will thrive under him because they like to be pushed to to the limits in order to get the best out of them, and others. But you'll quickly, I guess, under him find out who really wants to play for Everton and who doesn't, which is quite a good thing to know. So yeah, that's another topic, I guess, James Rodriguez, that we can speak about. But it just shows that there's a reason he hasn't made it at all of these other clubs, because certain managers just realize that he's all about. Look, he's a fantastic footballer, but in terms of a system, he kind of is a passenger in terms of trying to fit him into to work as a team player, which is but obviously, well, I think we'll still need him in certain games this season, so I do hope he's included. But I don't appreciate the comments that he made on Twitch. I just think it's shit, and it's so disrespectful towards a club that pays your salary. So
a lot of salary I would take.
Well. I would take his goals and assists, but if we end up winning a trophy, he wouldn't be the first person that I want to see, because I don't know, it just doesn't seem like he's really that interested.
Yeah, well, we'll touch on him for a second before we move on to the new signings this summer. Obviously, as you said, wonderful footballer, absolutely amazing technical footballer, one of the best, if not the best I've ever seen at Everton. Again, as you said, hasn't featured this season. We know he was openly available for a move in the summer. I think the club would have been happy to move him on, and I think the player himself would have been happy to move on. He hasn't moved and won't move now until January at the very earliest, or maybe even next summer. Is it, for you, is it down to James Rodriguez as a person now and what his personal motivation is, whether that's to just sit on £190,000 a week, get paid that money and not really be interested in playing and sit at home and play COD, or whether his personal motivation is, well, do you know what, maybe I wanted to move in the summer, I didn't get a move, I'm going to get my head down, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to show, because I think there's this narrative going around at the moment about Rafa Benitez that he doesn't get on with James Rodriguez, or he doesn't like him, and even if he's 100% fit, he won't play him. I don't think it's that whatsoever. I think Rafa Benitez was sure that James Rodriguez was showing as much commitment, as much desire, as much sort of passion as an Andros Townsend is, for example, then James Rodriguez would be in this Everton team, because Rafa Benitez has spoken before about how good of a footballer he is, the quality that he possesses as a footballer. So I don't think there's any question about whether or not he'd be in this Everton team if he was given 110%. Of course he would be. But do you think it's that case? It's the case that the manager isn't convinced that this player is given everything that he should be given. He's not committing as much as other players, and therefore he's not going to give James Rodriguez special treatment. He's not going to say to James, you only come in 2 days a week and you'll start every week, whereas I want Andros Townsend to come in every single day and you'll be on the bench because this fella's starting. He's not that type of manager, is he? Rafa Benitez, maybe Carlo was, maybe James come in, and we know James come in for Carlo, and he's openly said it on Twitch that, we come in for Carlo and now Carlo's gone. We knew that anyway. But Carlo was very much, I think, a manager who would not really take liberties with James, but almost give him preferential treatment over others, whereas Rafa Benitez isn't going to do that. So for you at the moment, do you think we'll see James Rodriguez get his head down, work hard and think, do you know what, I just want to play football this year? Or do you think we're more likely to see him sit on his wage and just sort of see his contract out until the end of the season?
I think that's quite an interesting one. I don't know, in terms of, it's probably all up to him, because after Everton, I don't know if he's going to get a club that's I guess higher than Everton. So if his contract runs out, who does he sign for? So yeah. I think it's up to him to decide where he wants to be and how many years he still has left. To be honest, I don't know how he'll be. I can't tell you, but I think he'll probably end up moving to the MLS, into Miami or somewhere in the summer, and go play in the warm climates. And but I'd love to say that he'd be committed and wanting to join, but we'll see how it plans out. But I do think that him and Rafa's whole this narrative that they don't get along. I think it was more a case of Rafa at Real Madrid. I don't know. Like, obviously Real Madrid has world class players, so if he doesn't maybe fit in there, it was more a case of someone else probably being better. So yeah. I don't think he turned his nose up for James won't play for Everton. So obviously is world class. But I think it's more about work rate and how he fits into a system that we're trying to play.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. I agree completely, and like I said, like you just said, then I think it is about the system, and it's about ultimately if James Rodriguez can get to that level of fitness that Rafa Benitez can trust him. He's not going to put a player in who he knows you might only get 25 minutes, half an hour out of, and then they're going to pick up an injury and go off, because you know that obviously changes the whole dynamic and the whole balance of the team. We'll finish up then. Before we finish up, I know you've got to shoot in a moment. What have you made of the signings this summer? Damari Gray, obviously, Andros Townsend, Asmir Begovic, Andy Lonergan, Solomon Rondon. A very different summer to the last one under Carlo Ancelotti that we've just spoken about, with James Rodriguez, Alan, Abdoulaye Doucouré. Obviously, there was a lot of Evertonians that weren't particularly happy about the summer in regards to, you know, the fact that we didn't manage to bring in a right back. We didn't manage to bring in any sort of real big name, a player that we can all get massively excited about. But there's no doubting that certainly the players that have come in so far, certainly the Andros Townsend and Damari Gray, they've hit the ground running, haven't they? So what have you thought of the summer transfer window, and are you happy with the players that we've brought in?
So I think we made some real strides towards actually fixing the issues that we were facing, which was pace in the first place, which I guess we had to work on a hefty budget. So I guess we had to look for bargains, and I think like the money ball approach of like, how can we get players that can fit into the players we have currently in order to make us better. So I think they did a good job there. One thing that I'm not happy with, I think like everyone, is a right back, because Seamus won't be able to play for most of the season. But I think with the money we had available, we did a good job in trying to alleviate the problems that we had. But I think they've been great so far. I just hope Damari Gray can keep up that consistency. And I think it's funny how we spent a lot of money on average players and they didn't perform. We spend no money and then we perform. So maybe we should go back to the way we spent under David Moyes, and we might get a more committed team out of it.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think this summer certainly sort of is very alike some of the summers under David Moyes in regards to, as you said, then we haven't spent an awful lot of money. We've brought in players that maybe some fans weren't particularly happy with when they come in, but ultimately they've ended up working, or at least so far. Look, I know we're only a few games into the season, so obviously there's still a long way to go and there's still a lot of work to be done, but at the moment it's happy days, isn't it? Well, look, mate, I know you've got to shoot, so I want to thank you very, very much for joining us today on the Park End Podcast. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple or any of those platforms, then please do give us a rating down below and let us know your thoughts. The podcast is something that we're going to look to do at least once or twice a month now. I know obviously it was left for a little bit because obviously of various other things going on, but it's definitely something that we're looking to pick up and continue again on a regular basis. I want to thank Corne massively for coming on and chatting to us today. Really, really do appreciate it. Always love talking to you, my mate, and we'll have to get on and do a live stream soon and sit for an hour and talk about Everton and whatever's going on at that time. But if you watch this a YouTube video, please do hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. A massive thank you all for watching.
Quickly before we go, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
What's your prediction for tomorrow?
So this is the Aston Villa game. I don't know whether I think this might go after the Aston Villa game, but I'm going to go with 2-1 win. What are you going for, mate?
2-1 win. I don't know. I want to say 2-0. I think my head is saying my heart's saying 2-0, but I don't know why I'm saying 1-1, but I don't know. I think 1-1, but hopefully 2-0.
Yeah, well, it'll be a tight game. Villa are a good side, physical side, and obviously a side with a lot of quality and invested heavily this summer as well. So it'll be a difficult game, but hopefully Everton can come out with the 3 points. Anyway, massive thank you to Corne for joining us once again, and a massive thanks to everybody for watching and listening. If you've enjoyed this one, give it a rate and subscribe, like all of that good stuff. And we will be back with the Park End Podcast very soon. Cheers for watching, listening, and we'll see you soon on the Park End Podcast.